Hey, welcome. I'm going to do this all in one go, so apologies, it's going to be rough and unedited because I don't know how to do all that stuff. I hope you enjoy it. I just wanted to share a little bit about what I've been doing in lockdown and just really enjoying the process and just wanting to share what I've been doing. This is just going to be a really quick tutorial, hopefully. I won't talk too much, but you should have all the materials required for this in an email somehow. But I was just really enjoying making a whole heap of postcards, and I'm just going to keep going. And what I'm also finding is they're quite nice to just have on the wall as well, just to kind of have around you. So what I do is a lot of textures and mark making as a way of kind of exploring ideas for print design. So my focus is on a lot of pattern. So I just wanted to share that with you, and also basic materials of what I found in the supermarket and around the house. So these sort of spirally, circly ones have been done with just rolled up bits of paper, toothpicks, and just folded paper, stripes, and candle wax. So I'm going to just take you through a couple of things, and if you want to know more, if you want to go more into a deep dive tutorial, let me know. Lockdown, so boring. So just some examples. This is just me folding paper and painting on with wet dye. And by the way, I'm just using food colouring and folded up bits of paper just to really enjoy the process of mark making. And once you get into a kind of a rhythm, it's just incredibly therapeutic, and I want to share that with you. So here's some pattern therapy. Do you know what? Before I start, I always have like my favorite mug and my favorite cup of tea, so please make sure you have one of those. And I also like to light a candle. I don't know, it's just something very calming, and I think we really need that right now because it's so easy to get so kind of busy in our heads. It's just nice to take the brain off the hook. So here we go. I'm going to put this down and show you all the materials that you need so that you can pause this video, go grab it, go get set up. So the first thing is a nice space to work. This one's been well used. Just some place to cover the table, some newspaper. You're going to need quite a lot of newspaper because you're going to put your work on bits of newspaper to let it dry and come back to it. So make sure you've got a bunch of newspaper before you start. The other thing is you're going to need somewhere to put the food colouring. So I've just been going hard out at the supermarket. It's not that expensive, the food colouring, but the sad news is I seem to have bought them out of yellow, and I now have hardly any yellow left. Yellow is just the most popular colour. It's always the case with yellow. So that's your food colouring. So get that lined up in front of you. And then you're going to need some little trays, and I've just been keeping little bottle caps to put it in. So that's the first thing you need. Newspaper, food colouring, bottle caps. Have some containers to put your dirty stuff into because it's going to get quite messy. So these are all my kind of discards, what I use to put my wet stuff in once I've finished it. So make sure you've got some of those by your sides. A little dish. That's all my old sponges I've been using. I'm using for, instead of paintbrushes, I've been using makeup swipers. These are quite good. I just kind of fold them and use them to apply the dye. So I've got a bunch of those. I've got some toothpicks, which I've been really enjoying using. These gorgeous things, little cupcake patty paper cases. These straws, which are quite cool. These ones are quite nice because they're not plastic. Let's avoid plastic. Those are paper straws. And I also have some candle wax, which we can get to a bit later. So this is just little birthday candles. Just make sure they're white, not dyed wax. And you're also going to need lots of this stuff. Your kitchen towel. I bought some sponges to play with. And the other thing is to have an assortment of paper. Where's my paper? I'd be lucky to have a good ream of A4 paper, but if you don't have that, I've been going to the supermarket and I've been getting just one of these. The paper is quite thin in those ones. The exercise book just has blank paper in it, but it's still quite doable and usable. So whatever you can find at the supermarket or just around the house. I found some old coloured cardboard too, which I've been using to make my postcards. And I think I got this cardboard at the $2 shop ages ago. So that's that. The other thing is we're going to make, yeah, it's a good idea to have a stash of different weights of paper too. So I'm just going to put those all to one side. And the other little thing which I'll get to later is to have a postcard just so that we can use that as a template, or sometimes if you've got an old framing mount like this, it's quite good just to have as a template for your work. So you're going to need some paper if you want to make one, some sellotape. This is just a homemade one. And the other thing is you need some paper just to test your colours out to have by your side as well. So let's get all that out of the way. So let's begin with, let's just do a really simple one to warm up. I'm going to do some stripes. So I'm just going to use a nice piece. Oh, the other thing. It's always good to have a matte, nice solid base to work on so it's nice and flat. And you are going to need, as well as everything else, these guys. A cutting tool, Sharpie and a ruler is quite good. And some scissors. Okay, so I'm just going to start by doing this one, which is just really simple soft stripes, just a nice monochromatic design. And then you can, if you do a whole sheet, it's quite good. You can keep some to play and layer on later. So the way I did this was just to fold the paper and just use it as a kind of stencil. Hopefully you can see this. So we're going to choose our colour. It is quite hard to see the colours once you put them into your caps or your paint container. So I'm going to start with a green. I'm actually not a big fan of the food colouring green. It's sort of quite vivid. It's quite emerald. It's quite bright. So I like to add a couple of drops of the blue just to kind of make it a bit more tealy. And I tend to be using a lot of these toothpicks to mix. What's quite cool, if you do this in a bottle cap, you can set it on a bit of paper and then just put your colour beside it so you know what colour that is. In fact, I should have done that. I'll do that with the next one. So I'm preferring this. It's still quite green, but it's quite a nice sort of more of a bluey green than a sharp bright green. So the makeup pads to begin with. These are very absorbent, so they're going to drink up all this dye. So I know what colour I've got, and I'm just going to use this one, and in fact I'll make another colour to go with this one, and I think I'm going to start with the green again. It's a real bummer I don't have yellow, and I'm going to make a lighter colour. I'm just going to try and I have a drop in here, precious drop. Oh, there we go. So mixy, and it's a nice, slightly paler version. Kind of liking those two together. So if I keep that beside there, I should know where I'm at. And I'm just going to do one more colour for these stripes and go with a blue. And this time maybe add a little bit of black to the blue. So this blue on its own is like that, which I kind of like, but again I find it a little bit sharp, so I'm gonna knock it back. knock it back with just a little bit of black, just sticking my toothpick in there. I like that better. Gonna go a bit more, hopefully not kill it. Always put your lids back on your food colouring, because it can be a disaster. Yeah, I'm liking that. So I'm going to put that guy up there so I know that's the blue. And I know that's the green, I know that's the blue, because it's impossible to see otherwise. And I'm going to start. So, I'm going to do vertical stripes. No, I'm not. I'm going to do horizontal ones. And let's do a few. So all I do is I get the paper nice and flat, and I hold down this folded sharp edge of the paper, and I'm picking up the die. I did tell you about having lots of lids around, right? It's really quite critical, and I'll show you why. Because once you get into here and soak up a whole lot of dye on your makeup pad, it's going to be really, really wet. And so I quite like to take off some, or stab it around a bit so it's a little drier. And then you can experiment with quite wet and quite dry stripes. So let's just do some, that's fairly nice. So the paper, just be careful not to smudge where you've been, because obviously there's a wet edge and a wet stripe. Just check that it's not too messy on the back, and then just come in and pop another one down. So I haven't put any more ink on here because I want to kind of go dark to light, break it up a bit. And so on, etc. So simple, so yummy. And it's kind of nice to have stripes that are a little bit broken as well. You know, sometimes things happen in a bit of a haphazard way or incidental way. It's always good to do. So I've got a few stripes. I'm going to just put a few more down. And I haven't put any more dye on my makeup pad. I'm just going with what I got. Give yourself some room. Take over the kitchen table. Okay, so that's one. I'm just going to let that have a bit of a dry. You can do as many as you like. I'm just going to do another example of just using, maybe instead of the sharp edge, just use some ripped paper. So keep these. I think these are good to play with later. And also if you like doing collage, it's great to keep all these kind of bits and pieces. So I haven't put any more on because I just want to go quite gently down and just have a bit of a, yeah, you just don't need much more. I've got 2 layers here. And then you can get some more wavy lines. Maybe just one more. Okay, let's that one dry. Coming back to the sky, let's put that there, get another makeup pad, start bringing in some other colors. So I like to fold to use these bits of paper so there's a bit more strength in them when they're folded over. You've got a double layer. And we're going to go back over. So just like you've got a lovely sharp line here, you might want to keep that. These are just really lovely sharp lines, but I'm just going to do some overlaying to see what happens. All these colors here that I've mixed, they're all quite dark. So I'm going to try and go with the lighter green, see what happens. And again, just a lid to get some of that excess wet off so it's more kind of evenly soaked up onto your makeup sponge. Oh, that's kind of cute. That's quite sort of Kermit the Froggy. So I kind of like that. I like the way this food coloring can just nicely overlay one another. Yum. Okay, we're in business. I'm loving these stripes. Cool. So you can just do as many as you like. Just pause the video, fill up a whole heap of A4 sheets, and we can come back to other stuff to overlay on this. So that's using the green. I'm just going to put a little bit more here. And yay. So dare I go in with this blue? I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I don't want the blue to be too dominating. So what I'm going to do is, instead of going with the fold and just using one edge, I'm going to bring two folds together. That makes sense. So I've got one, two. So I'm going to make some little narrow stripes with the darker blue. So I'm holding this down. If you have got, by any chance, a little bit of low-tack tape, that's always really useful. Sometimes I'm just too impatient to be putting tape on things. But if you have got it, it's quite nice, because then things don't move around quite so much. Or even just some blue tack. Ugh. I'm just going to use a tiny bit. Sometimes it just becomes a little bit more of a bother when things are stuck down. So a tiny bit there, tiny bit there, just to help you as an extra pair of hands. So I've got a little fine line here, fine-ish line, and then we're going to soak up some of this blue, which is here. Make sure you don't move those around too much. And another lid just to even it out. Soak it up a bit more so it's not so wet. You don't want to plunge in with big drips. Okay, so let's see what happens here. I'm going to press quite hard because it's quite thick having these two folds. Ah! Don't do that. Oh, I didn't put enough tape on. There you go. Just going to go in with my fingers, pressing it down really hard. That's better. Cool. 1, 2. And maybe another one here. Just careful it's not too messy. Just have a check on the back. Okay. Pressing it down with my fingers, and your fingers are going to get messy. But that's all part of it, right? Cool. And a few more. You can add a little bit of water if you like, and get some even sort of more paler versions of the colors you've mixed with some water. Just don't make sure the pad isn't really too wet, otherwise you're going to get bleeding and blurring. So I'm going to leave it like that. You guys should just keep going, carry on, pause the video, make a whole lot of samples, but I'm going to stop that for now. I wanted to just quickly run through making a template, because it's really good to start looking at what you are doing and framing it, so you can kind of honor some of these marks, some of these random marks. So the way I was suggesting you do that was to find a postcard. Now I haven't got all my stuff with me, but here we go. Find a postcard. What do I do with that? To make the template. Here we go. Right. So you're just going to make a little frame out of paper. So I like the postcard size because I want to make some postcards. Well, I have been making postcards to send to people once we're out of lockdown, all those people, that gorgeous friends that you need to give some love to that you haven't been able to. So you're just going to trace around it. Just cut out some sections. Keep disappearing. To create a little frame. So once you've done your stripes, as your first one, you can start seeing what it might look like as a little postcard. Or you might want to have it that way. Pretty cute actually. So that's your stripes. So another one, let's go to some more mark making. The ones that I've been really enjoying is just the rolled up bits of paper. So for example, these ones I made earlier. Making a fan is really cool to get some textures, and also keep all this stuff because you can do something with these lovely sort of marks as well. But yeah, making a fan is a really good one. When you're making a fan and using that as a stamp, you get these really nice textures. I'll just show you, like this one. So that's just using one of these folded up. You're just using it as a stamp and then overlaying, so going horizontal, vertical to get a nice sort of textured weave. And then when you come in with your lovely frame, this one I prepared earlier, you can start seeing how cool that is. Whoops! Once you start isolating it to make a postcard. You can do some work over the top of that as well. Okay, so let's do some of these. I've got slightly heavier weight paper for this. I found some in an old sketchbook that I had, so that was quite good, but just experiment with different weights. So you're literally just making mark making tools with folded up bits of paper. This one's quite cool, just to get some nice, I think this one was just the stamp I used, that kind of idea. And yeah, the rolled up, or just V's, or just, yeah, just see how you go. But I just wanted to start with doing some spirally circle ones. So again, just make sure you do quite a few so that you've got a few layers to work on, and sort of a few backgrounds to work on top of. So where were we? Now, the colors. So these ones I made earlier, I can actually just snip in half. So I've got a new bit to work on that hasn't got any dye on it. So you're just literally rolling it up like that, and then just loosening it, and see a nice loose spiral is quite cool. So with this one, you know what, I keep all these bits. I don't throw anything away. I think it's something, it's a little bit of a issue I have. Can't throw anything away ever. Okay, so I have got this color. I've mixed up my colors. Here we go. Blue, green, and this guy. So I'm going to start with this blue to begin with. So I'm really soaking it up in my bottle cap. And just test it out on a bit of paper first to make sure you're happy, because the first ones are usually quite wet, and you start getting nicer marks after doing it for a little while. So that's quite nice. I love this. So let's just see. So when you're doing mark making, it's really nice just not to think about what you're doing. Some of you might want to do little repetitive rows. Some of you might want to just do random all over the place. But remember, you're going to make these little postcards. So you're thinking of these little A5 sizes. So I kind of like the way it goes from dark to light. I'm just going to get a bit more. It's quite wet. I kind of like mixing up this idea of the wet and the dry as you go. I'm just reusing some of this ink. Make it go as far as you can. So that's some blue ones. Just see what happens. Just spend some time filling up some nice A4 sheets of texture. And what happens when you go fast? What happens when you go slow? What happens when you twist your wrist? What happens when you put some disco music on? What happens when you get interrupted? Hopefully you've got do not disturb sign wherever you're working. Okay, cool. So I've got a few things to work on there. Yum! I'm going to let that dry. The other one I'm just going to very quickly do is the toothpicks. So you got it with the paper, right? So this one is just using folded up. In fact, it's just, I think it was this one I used. So just try it out. And yeah, just experiment with different rhythms, different rotations, different repeats. See where you go. So the toothpicks, I've been really enjoying just making scratchy marks. I hold like 3 together like that. And it's quite good to have a dark color. I'm going to use this dark green. So I've loaded up, there's quite a lot of ink on here, so the first stroke is going to be quite thick. And just don't think too much about what you're doing. Just enjoy it. So now I'm overthinking. Okay, so I'm just going to do some random stripes for this one on a horizontal. And I think I'll do like a, I don't know what you call this pattern, I should remember, but I can't remember. Like a herringbone, whoops. And not sure about this, so let's just have a look through the window. Where's my window? Just love having this window. Yeah, cute. It's going to be a nice postcard. So I'm going to just put some more colours on that one. Okay, this is pretty much it. I'm going to fill this whole page while I'm here. Okay, so I'm not going to go on for too much longer. I'm going to try and keep this video to half an hour. And if you want to do some more with me, then let me know. So I'm just going to put some blue on here. I haven't even begun to show you the candle wax yet. The other thing you can do with these toothpicks is make dots. I was doing some nice dots before. It's just really important not to overthink and just let your mind go off the hook and let your hand just take you where you want to go. I'm liking this actually, it's adding a little bit more of a dimension to it. So I'm going to just carry on. This will become something, and yeah, I'm going to leave you guys to it. I hope you've enjoyed that. That's just a little introduction. Hope you've got nice inky fingers, and yeah, show me what you've done. Send me an email or drop it into Instagram or whatever you want to do. I hope that's enough to keep you going for now. Don't forget to have a cup of tea. Thank you. See ya.